Hello, my name is Mati and welcome to Estonian Real Podcast. My guest today is Thomas E. Levy. Today we are talking about the problems of modern medicine, vitamin C and what is the real cause of diseases. Dr. Levy is board certified cardiologist and a bar certified attorney. After practicing cardiology for 15 years, he began to research the enormous toxicity associated with dental work, as well as the pronounced ability of properly administered vitamin C to neutralize this toxicity. He has now written 13 books, including Hidden Epidemic and most recently Rapid Virus Recovery. He is one of the world's leading vitamin C experts and frequently lectures to medical professionals all over the globe about the proper role of vitamin C and antioxidants in the treatment of a host of medical conditions and diseases. So, Dr. Levy, thank you for coming.
My pleasure. Glad to be here, Mati.
Can you talk about yourself besides reading this small bio?
Well, as you said in your little introduction there, I was just a regular cardiologist back in 1994 in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And I had the opportunity to meet Dr. Hal Huggins, who, for those who haven't heard of him, is really the most significant and leading biological dentist in the world. And he had his clinic in Colorado Springs, and we got to know each other at a little conference in town. And he said, well, why don't you come by the clinic and see how we do things here? And I had no major expectations, but it sounded interesting. So I dropped by the clinic. Very nice structure. He'd get patients that would come in from around the world with every imaginable medical condition you can imagine, including advanced neurological syndromes, Parkinson's, Lou Gehrig's, Alzheimer's. And they would get a 2-week treatment period where he'd get a total dental revision. All sources of infection and toxicity were taken out of the mouth. They were counseled on diet and other activities, given extensive blood work to check on things. And one time when I was over there, maybe my second visit, I saw a little old lady in a wheelchair go into the dental operatory. And my goodness, she got several hours worth of extensive dental work, extractions, you name it, the type of stuff that puts a college student to bed for a week if he gets it done. You know, like when the wisdom teeth come out, it just knocks their feet out from under them. Well, the funny thing here was this little old lady, I mean, didn't look like she had that much energy, started getting more and more and more energized as more and more dental work was done. And I'm having a tough time figuring out what was going on. And about that time, Dr. Huggins came by, and I said, okay, Hal, okay, Dr. Huggins, what the heck is going on here? And he pointed to the IV bag. I said, oh, okay, IV bag, that's good. And he said, it's what's in it that counts. I said, okay, I'll bite. What's in the IV bag? And he said 50 grams of vitamin C. And that really meant nothing to me at the time, except that it was something in the bag that was doing something that I never saw happen before. And it was so dramatic. It was literally at that point in time that my life changed. And I said, I'm not in the habit of denying what my eyes are witnessing. And I don't plan on ever denying what my eyes witness. And that began my own odyssey, if you will, on researching vitamin C, doing more work. I later on became a consultant to Dr. Huggins' clinic, so I got a whole lot more clinical experience with this and a number of different patients. And roughly 4 or 5 years later, I wrote my first book on vitamin C, Curing the Incurable, Vitamin C Infectious Diseases and Toxins. And along the way, you had asked about being a lawyer. At the point in time that I was working with Dr. Huggins, I really gave up my regular medical practice. I really had no interest with what I was seeing in his office with just continuing with cardiology as is practiced. And I started getting so much time on my hands, and he paid me quite well, and I would witness different patients, different circumstances. Hal was always getting people that wanted to get at him, legally speaking. And he actually had a lawyer on retainer of a sizable amount just to deal with the slings and arrows that would come at him for trying to give people good treatment, but it wasn't mainstream therapy. So I suddenly got the idea that maybe for self-protection and other reasons I don't know, a law degree is my next step. And lo and behold, I took the LSAT, got the score I needed, and I commuted back and forth from Colorado Springs to Denver for 3 years and got the law degree. So I gotta say, it's given me a lot of perspective. I haven't practiced a day of law in my life, but it's given me a little bit more insight into how everything works, because we also talked for a minute before we started this about politics. And I gotta tell you this, I'll tell you ahead of time, one of my punchlines, there's more politics in medicine than there is in politics. So since then, I've been part of a few clinics, and we've done intravenous vitamin C therapy and a number of other things. And we started getting into now the pandemic, and we got to see what vitamin C does, and that's sort of where we stand now. And I'm continuing to, I don't have a clinical practice, stopped having that 20, 25 years ago, but I've spent all my time on research, dealing with other doctors around the world, initiating protocols with people that want to work with me, and getting a lot of what we call arm's length experience, okay? It's not people right in front of me, but other physicians who report back to me the type of results that they're getting with the different protocols we're talking about.
It's kind of I want to ask that I talked about this for one of my friends about you coming being my guest, and I was a little bit surprised that vitamin C is like a very well researched field, but why we still need to bring it in a spotlight that vitamin C is important, but why this mainstream medicine don't want to say that vitamin C is important and you have to take it this and this amount.
Well, this upsets a lot of people to hear this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Most doctors, the better ones, care about you, but the majority of them do not put your health as their number one priority. Okay, you're not their main concern. I can't put it any more delicately than that. Okay, a lot of doctors are just money-grubbing jerks with enormous egos. They won't be told anything or advised anything. And I can't tell you, over the past 20 years, the number of people that have written me emails with their loved ones dying in the intensive care unit of sepsis and begging the freaking doctor to give intravenous vitamin C, which is cheap, harmless, and proven to be effective, and giving them volumes of research that they can read, but the arrogance is just incredible. Don't tell me what to do, don't tell me how to do it. These doctors need to be criminally tried for negligent manslaughter when that patient dies, or worse, depending on how much they actually knew about the vitamin C versus keeping themselves in the dark. So there's no candy coating it. Doctors like this kill people. They kill a hell of a lot more people than they save, because all they use is prescription drugs, nearly all of which are toxic and have as one of their side effects the relief of a certain symptom that you might have. But unless you're practicing what we call orthomolecular medicine, which is identifying the natural substances that you're deficient in and restoring those substances, you're not doing anything positive for the patient. Unless they're in a trauma accident and you stop their bleeding, well, good for you. You did something there. You stopped their bleeding. But as far as a medical condition goes, there's very few circumstances in which, quote unquote, modern medicine actually makes somebody better. Whereas when you restore deficiencies in essential nutrients, vitamins, minerals, different enzymes, you actually can effect improvements that are real, and in certain disease conditions, cures that cannot be and never have been and never will be achieved with the fanaticism of mainstream medicine with supporting the pharmaceutical industries, because it's just one big boy and girl club just to can't leave the ladies out of this. They're just as vicious as the men when it comes to chasing money in medicine. And I'm making generalizations, and I'll clarify who are in orthomolecular medicine, integrative medicine, naturopathic. I'm not talking about those folks. Those folks care about their patients and always put their patients' welfare first, not income and not status at the hospital. Okay, what we saw during this pandemic was horrible. I don't know exactly how it was in Estonia, but we had governmental institutions, pharmaceuticals, medical boards, hospital pharmacies, hospital staff telling doctors how to practice medicine, telling them what they could use, telling them what they couldn't use. And those doctors who fought it, good for them. They were the real doctors. But most of them were just happy not to do anything that they weren't told that they weren't told to do. And I mean, the uproar for so long with COVID, with ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, chloroquine, those are phenomenal medicines. They're old medicines. They've been used for decades. They're safe. They're effective. But anybody who hasn't figured out for themselves why they think this pandemic occurred and what it's achieving, I'm not going to get into that. If you can't figure that one out for yourself, I'm not going to go there. But all I can tell you is the government ran the show, and the medical-related institutions ran the show, and we have had the tail wagging the dog for so long, and the doctors just had no spine. They wouldn't stand up to it. And I hope there's been enough realizations with the pandemic that we can now see that orthomolecular practices like the administration of vitamin C are the way to go. We have enormous numbers of people now, 2 years later, that get COVID and do fine. They don't even really get that sick. In January of 2020, over 2 years ago, wow, you had lots of people, they get sick, they go in the hospital, and of course the hospital helped them die because the first thing they wanted to do was just put a tube down their throat, and virtually everybody that got intubated early on died. It was the death sentence. But the thing is since then, less and less and less and less people have died, and it's my opinion that we've had more and more and more awareness in way different sources of information that vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, a number of other these natural substances are enormously important in arming your immune system. And so I think now, 2.5 years later, we have incredibly large numbers of people now supplementing vitamin C and vitamin D that never did before. And as a result, the same bugs are not having the same mortality effect.
But come back to this money thing that you pretty much, like I said, you pissed off lots of people, and you said that most doctors are arrogant. They think because they think they know everything they know about the human body, and like I said that there is money involved, because I understand that most doctors have like some connection with the pharmaceutical industry, as I understand.
No, I mean, if you have a doctor and you love him or her and you're convinced they do everything in your best interest, that's fine. Stay happy. Okay, but you'll find out real quick what kind of doctor you have when you say, doctor, can next time I come to the hospital, can you help support my immune system with a 25 to 50 gram infusion of vitamin C while I deal with everything else? And then you'll see the real doctor come out from behind the mask and the costume.
I had one friend who really trust his family doctor, but it came against vaccine, but they want to dwell deeply in them. But pretty much you can understand that he deeply trusted him, and you know where it goes. But for me, pretty much this pandemic a little bit opened my eyes, and pretty much I lost all faith in the medical system. When you expect doctors taking care of people's health, expect them to be pure as samples. But somewhere I feel that if you see some doctors are fat and carry other diseases, there's something wrong. But okay, let's come back to money. Why is this medical industry and pharmaceutical is so directly involved that why one doesn't understand that they're doing something wrong?
Well, it's just really observation. I mean, there's not a single thing that mainstream medicine does that the pharmaceutical companies don't produce. And not only do they not give vitamins and minerals. They actively promote propaganda and tell people they're going to hurt themselves by taking vitamins and minerals. Okay, so if you could somehow rationalize that into thinking the doctor really cares about your welfare, you've got on rosier colored glasses than I do. Okay, very recently now, okay, most of us, especially that are interested in analyzing this, have known for a long time now about the dangers of the vaccines and the limited, if any, significant benefit from the vaccine, and have been chastised, and I've gotten admonishments from my medical board for my book and the things that I say. Well, guess what now? Here we are 2.5 years later, and you have an entire country by the name of Denmark. And Denmark has banned, not suggested, but banned the vaccine for anybody under 50. That kind of says it all right there. They're not even giving you the option of getting a vaccine if you're under 50, because COVID has become so harmless, especially relative to the many reported vaccine reactions, that you have, as far as I know, the first government, significant government, speaking out loud and saying, guess what? We've screwed up, but we're going to make our mid-course correction right now and just inflict the vaccine on the 50 years and older. I mean, I think when you do what we're talking about, on the measures that we're talking about, why vaccinate against something that you can readily cure? Even if there was no side effects, and we know that's not the case, there's lots of side effects. Why would you use a vaccine with significant side effects against any condition you could completely and easily cure, and most of the time prevent? So, but logic rarely plays a role in stuff like this. It's all power. I mean, once people get into the government, I don't know, it's this human condition of everybody gets off on controlling everybody else. I mean, I don't want to control anybody. I want to help people and then have them leave me the heck alone while I lead my life. I'll help you. Okay, leave me alone. I sure as heck don't want to control other people's lives, but that appears to be a major motivating force with just about anybody in the government or in the upper echelon of medical politics.
I think when it comes to government, I think this kind of attracts certain people who have this tendency to abuse his power. But there are some good people, but what I see the most majority they want to abuse and control people and tell what people should do. And
well, like I say, the people out there that think I'm exaggerating, and they have a doctor that they have to deal with, do a little writing, do a little reading, see about things that find interesting, and see how interested your doctor is in just having a discussion with you, and just talking with you, and just answering your questions, and not trying to belittle you as somebody who's too stupid to even understand what's going on with your body. Most of those doctors are not going to tolerate you. Now, if you think that's the type of doctor you want, by all means go to it. But a lot of times I end up all my little podcasts and things like this when they say, well, what do you have any final words for us, Dr. Levy? And that is yes. And that is, when you go to your doctor, if your doctor's not willing and even pleased and happy to have a conversation with you, to answer your questions, to entertain your points that might contradict what he or she thinks in a reasonable fashion, don't walk out of that office, run out of that office.
Have you read a book called Confessions by Medical Heretic from Robert Mendelsohn?
Yeah, I've heard of it. I haven't read it, no.
Okay, pretty much talked about same thing, that but a little bit in a more gentleman's perspective, but same thing, that when you go to a doctor's house, ask questions. As ask, and it's like first step. But if the conversation ends up in a point where doctor says, just trust me, then stand up and leave and stay away from the doctor. Pretty much also points out that the modern medicine is the hospital is acts more like a church than a hospital, and then or building that should cure people.
Well, I mean, doctors as well, who have their patients go to a hospital, but they're not a member of that hospital staff, they completely 100% lose all control and even input into how their patients are being taken care of. All right? I mean, if you want to make sure your loved one gets some vitamin C and something else while they're in the hospital, you got to do it under stealth. You have to make believe. You have to get in. You have to fool the nurses because, again, that arrogance comes through. The doctor in charge says, you'll get nothing that I don't prescribe or offer. And I didn't think it would disband until the pandemic. The pandemic has just brought things into a focus like I've never seen before as to the true, in my opinion, underlying sentiments of the healthcare industry, including the physicians. And it's also covered in my book, Rapid Virus Recovery, that I wrote the book, and it's available in printed in physical form, but people can download it for free because I wanted to get the information. And if whatever, when we're through with our talk, you can make sure people have my email. They can feel free to email me and say, please send me the information you talked about with mine.
So let's move on to vitamin C. Okay, let's start with the basic. What is vitamin C and why it has so many benefits?
Well, first, it's important to understand what causes disease. And I mean all disease, not this, that, or the other. All disease is oxidation in excess of reduction. Okay, oxidation is where biomolecules lose electrons, and reduction is when those biomolecules get repaired by receiving electrons and coming back to a normal level. When you have an oxidized biomolecule, it doesn't work. When you have a reduced biomolecule, it functions correctly. You know, fats, lipids, proteins, enzymes, all of these are biomolecules. So, all disease processes involve something that's oxidizing in excess of your influx of new antioxidant on a daily basis. Usually it's infections because, and this is important, all toxins, all of them, are pro-oxidant. They cause oxidation. That's why they're toxic. A toxin is toxic because it oxidizes. And the differences among toxins only pertain to where does the toxin go in the body because of its own unique chemical makeup, fatty, water-soluble, big, small, ionic, etc. So, that in a nutshell is what causes disease. How much new oxidizing agents are you getting on a daily basis? How much new antioxidant reducing agents are you getting on a daily basis? So that said, what's the most important? Antioxidant, and that's vitamin C. Now, any molecule in your food that you ingest that's good for you, that's a nutrient. It's a nutrient because at the molecular level, it has an electron donating or reduction phenomenon. Whereas bad food is, let's say you fried something, you oxidize it when you fried it, and then you ingest it as an oxidized substance, and it breaks down to molecules that are oxidized and seek to take electrons away and oxidize other good biomolecules. So that's it. And that's the thrust of diet. Diet is, do the molecules that I ingest, are they nutrients or are they toxins? And nutrient is donates an electron, toxin takes it away. Well, so everything, to one degree or another, falls on the antioxidant nutrient side or the toxin poison side, if you will. Now, vitamin C comes into play because it's a tiny molecule. It gets everywhere in the body. It actually competes with glucose for the glucose transporters to get inside the cell. So when insulin comes along to push in the glucose in your cell, it'll push in the vitamin C at the same time. The vitamin C has 2 electrons per molecule rather than 1 that it can donate. And all of these things together make it not only the ideal antioxidant, but in fact the most important antioxidant in your body. You define a healthy cell by whether it has a normal level of reduced vitamin C. If you have a cell that has the normal level of reduced vitamin C, it's a healthy cell. Because all health has to do, remember, is knock down the antioxidation, knock down the toxicity, and reduce as many of those previously oxidized biomolecules as possible. That's all health is. The numbers of biomolecules that you have oxidized is disease. It doesn't cause disease, it is disease, which is a very important function. It doesn't cause some ill-defined disease. It's the fact that you have, in any disease process, a unique array of oxidized biomolecules in different places, at different concentrations, not functioning the way they should, and that's the disease. Truth be known, if you could stop, very difficult to do, but if you could stop the influx of new toxins on a daily basis, this includes chronic infections. They're bad because they produce toxins. If you can reduce or block new toxins from coming into your body on a daily basis and kick up your antioxidants to a level higher than you had before, you could cure a lot of incurable conditions. And at the very least, you could improve a lot of diseases that are only characterized by gradual deterioration. So vitamin C does all of this, and it also plays the role of conducting the electron. By that, you have such a high concentration when you're healthy of vitamin C inside your cell that the vitamin C goes, donate, receive, donate, receive, donate, receive, donate, receive. Because remember, once the vitamin C has donated its electrons, it's now oxidized. Okay, so it's looking for electrons to bring it back again. So when you have a lot of vitamin C, this means that the electrons pass through the cell quickly. And what is electron flow? Current. Okay, and we've definitely identified in biological tissues microcurrents and voltage gradients across the cell, and identified that the more brisk the electron flow is and the higher the voltage is across the cell wall, the healthier the cell that you have. But it's all still a reflection of how optimal your vitamin C state is in your body.
We established what vitamin C is doing with our body, but is there like upper limit where like become toxic, or is like none of it?
That's an excellent question. And after researching it and working with it for over 25 years now, and for reasons I'll tell you why, vitamin C, to my knowledge, is the only molecule in existence for which there has never been defined a level of toxicity above a certain point. It's like, food, you can eat so much food that you can hurt yourself, but taking too much vitamin C is like taking too much nutrition. Okay? It has no toxic downside. And you can't really say that for anything else. I use the example very frequently in my lectures, for example, that psychiatric patients get obsessions with drinking water. And there are many case reports where somebody just keeps on drinking water until they knock down a couple gallons of water in 10 or 15 minutes, and they dilute out all the electrolytes in their body. They get cerebral edema, they have brain seizures, and they die. Well, if the only thing that you took was water and now you're dead, that means water is more toxic than vitamin C, because you can't do that with vitamin C.
But okay, if vitamin C has no limits, why like the doctors tell us that you cannot take more than this amount or will become toxic?
Well, let me be blunt. They're arrogant and they're stupid. They're not interested in being educated because, like I say, patients all the time try to offer these physicians legitimate articles, and they just wouldn't dream of being given a source of information from a mere layperson about what they do. So they're I don't know which one they are more stupid or more arrogant, but they're both. You got to stop thinking, in my opinion, that the doctor out there, the average doctor out there, is actively doing everything he or she can to give you the best care. That's crap. That's not happening, okay? They want to conduct their practice in the habit that they do and the way that they do it, punch the clock, go home, go on their boat, do this, do that. They're not dedicating their lives to being educated by new things on a daily basis to make themselves better and better and better for the benefit of their patients. That's a pure fiction, I'm afraid, Dr.
That's okay. If you want to take vitamin C, do you only need to take supplements, or there's special kind of food that gives this vitamin C that the body needs?
No, it can't come from food. And you can't get enough from food. Number one, they say, what type of vitamin C? And there's a lot of misinformation on this by people that want to market exotic, expensive vitamin C supplements by saying it's vitamin C complex and this, that, or the other, and it's in conjunction with this, that, or the other. Well, that's bull crap too. I mean, we have 85 years of literature on vitamin C, and it's just vitamin C, ascorbic acid or sodium ascorbate, that has resulted in these phenomenal results. Now, you can take more stuff with vitamin C and support its good functions, but it doesn't mean that if you take vitamin C by itself, you're not going to get these phenomenal healing results with infections and other chronic diseases. Now, in the literature and in the governmental recommendations, they have something called the RDA, the Recommended Dietary Allowance. The official RDA for vitamin C, depending on your body size and sex, runs between 50 and 100 milligrams a day. Well, all that will do is keep you from having the extremely advanced deficiency disease known as scurvy. But it doesn't remotely approach the amount of vitamin C that your body needs. The literature will tell you vitamin C is a micronutrient, milligrams. It's a macronutrient. You need grams of it. Why do we know this? Well, not only do the people that practice orthomolecular medicine like myself, have we seen the impact of vitamin C on different infections. We have the studies that show the higher your blood levels of vitamin C are in your blood, the longer you live. All-cause mortality goes down. Your death from any cause is less the higher your vitamin C intake and blood levels go. Now, we also know in the liver of the human being, there are 4 enzymes that convert glucose all the way down to vitamin C. But genetically, we had a defect in that 4th enzyme, so human beings are unable to synthesize their own vitamin C, whereas most wild animals can. Most wild animals have all 4 enzymes and make their own vitamin C. So when you take a wild animal that makes its own vitamin C and take a comparably sized person, like a moderate-sized goat with a moderate-sized man, that moderate-sized goat makes anywhere from 6 to 10 grams, 6 to 10,000 milligrams of vitamin C a day. And furthermore, it's secreting it directly into the blood. It's not having to deal with how much is absorbed from your food or how much is absorbed from your supplement. It just goes straight into the blood. And when you give that goat a life-threatening infection or toxin exposure, the synthesis of vitamin C can shoot up 10, 15, 20, 50, 100 grams to deal with that. So the body's optimal health is supported by multi-gram doses of vitamin C, and there's no way you can ever get that type of vitamin C from food. That's not to say you don't eat healthy food, because there's a lot of other things that a proper diet will take care of. Vitamin C is not one of them, because we should be making our own, and we lost the ability.
Is there any reason like why we lost this ability if animals have this like ability to produce its own vitamin C?
Well, that's a good question. We don't really know. There's been a lot of speculation by different authors as to what that reason might be. But we have some data that shows us, and this is relatively new, that babies, for example, many of them can make vitamin C when they're born, and they gradually lose the ability. So that suggests that the loss of the synthesis of this enzyme is called a epigenetic defect rather than a genetic defect. Genetic would just mean the sequence of nucleotides is so screwed up the enzyme can't be made. When it's epigenetic, it means you get the RNA off the DNA, but there's a problem interpreting the RNA into the protein. And there do appear to be some agents in nature, polyphenols, such as is found in olive leaf extract, that causes most people that take it with an appropriately dose to start making enormous amounts of vitamin C again, or more specifically, to substantially increase the amounts of vitamin C inside their blood. I say that because there's some people that just refuse to believe you could be synthesizing it, so they come up with some other crazy reasons why your blood level of vitamin C should be so high after this. but take my word for it, there's no way it could be anything other than the fact that you're allowing the body to make it again just because of the amounts that are involved in the entire blood volume throughout the body. But we showed this, a physician colleague of mine, we took the product, we measured vitamin C levels, they doubled right away and stayed doubled as long as we took the product. And more importantly, what did I tell you about the way the body reacts? If you have the fourth enzyme functioning, when you get a new stress inside your blood, oxidative stress or infectious stress, the natural response is for you to make more vitamin C to deal with that. If you can't make vitamin C, then what you're going to see is a drop in vitamin C as it gets used up. And so we both documented with nurses from the clinic taking our blood that after we ingested a significant amount of a toxin known as alcohol, that instead of dropping, our vitamin C level shot up and stayed elevated for 24 hours until all the alcohol was metabolized. So I see no way around otherwise concluding that that means that that particular polyphenol in the olive leaf extract was able to allow your liver to make the protein that allows you to synthesize vitamin C again. And so anybody that's listening, what do I recommend? Take olive leaf extract. Take olive leaf extract. Absolutely. For that reason, in my opinion, outside of vitamin C, magnesium, vitamin D, and vitamin K2, it's just about the most important thing that you can take, and it's quite inexpensive.
You talked about vitamin D as well, that is like also one of the important vitamins you need to take. Can you tell me what like vitamin D is and why it's so important?
Well, those four I mentioned, which are vitamin C, magnesium, vitamin D, and vitamin K2, they all regulate calcium metabolism and make sure calcium doesn't accumulate but gets metabolized and excreted. Each one of those things separately, vitamin C by itself, magnesium by itself, vitamin D3 by itself, and vitamin K2 by itself, in studies show that they individually decrease all-cause mortality. In other words, they decrease your chances of dying from anything. Now, for something to decrease your chance of dying from anything, means it needs to impact all the cells. Otherwise, if it just impacted certain cells, you might have less of this disease but not affect that disease. This affects all the cells in the body because all diseases are alleviated. And this is because I mentioned before about the importance of vitamin C inside the cell. Well, when you have a quote-unquote sick cell, you have a very high level of intracellular calcium and a very low level of intracellular magnesium, low level of vitamin C, low level of glutathione. And it's the high calcium level inside the cell that keeps the cell sick. I wrote a book called Death by Calcium, and it's in the literature. I'm just going to tell you, calcium is toxic. Calcium is one of the most toxic things you can take in excess. Okay, obviously you need some calcium. It's an important part of metabolism in your body, but our obsession with milk drinking and calcium supplements is extremely bad for all type of health. The higher your calcium intake is, the shorter you live. The higher your calcium intake is, the greater your chance for cancer, period. And it's all in the book. It's not just stuff I pulled off the top of my head. It's out there in the literature and all put together. But the point is calcium excess in your cell is what causes and provokes all disease, pathophysiologically. And the way you get the calcium out is by taking a lot of magnesium. The more magnesium you take, the calcium drops as the magnesium goes up. And once the magnesium goes up, then vitamin C can start accumulating and glutathione can be synthesized inside the cell. So even though a normal vitamin C level is necessary for a healthy cell, you'll never get to the point where you have that normal vitamin C level until you knock down the calcium and bring the magnesium up again.
I always talked about drink lots of milk, you get protein, calcium for your bones. Why is calcium so poisonous? What they will do if you have too much calcium in your body besides causing cancer?
Well, because of what it does inside each cell. As the calcium goes up, the oxidative stress goes up. And we already talked about all disease is increased oxidative stress. And the thing is our dietary habits are cultural. They're not science-based. We eat and drink what we like, what we've done growing up, what our parents and grandparents have done, how our country eats. That what determines what our eats is not what determines what we eat is not what is best for us. Okay, so it's not really natural to be drinking milk as a beverage unless you're an infant all your life or a baby cow all your life. Okay, those are designed specific times in the life of a calf, a young cow, and the same thing. We nurture on the breasts of our mothers when we're tiny infants, but except with rare exceptions, that doesn't continue as you go into childhood and adulthood. Okay, it's there early on to help a lot of physiological functions. Beyond that, like I said, it's just the way the physiology is. Calcium is toxic. Calcium is toxic. Iron is toxic. Copper is toxic. Okay, and are they completely bad? No. Of course, they have nutrition. I'm not saying a glass of milk does not have nutrition. Of course it does. But does that outweigh the benefit of the enormous amount of calcium that you're taking in with it? I would say no.
So pretty much you say that if you drink milk, you only drink milk when you're very young and you're dependent on your mother. But after that, you should give it up.
And I mean, you don't ingest that much milk when the milk is used in preparing different foods or baking or this, that, or the other. So I'm not saying somebody has to be extreme, but by the same token, it's a calcium overdose to have 1 or 2 large glasses of milk a day, absolutely. And the same thing, too, are people with acid stomachs who take Tums and Rolaids. Those Tums and Rolaids have enormous amounts of calcium in them, and you need to find a different way to deal with your acidic stomach than a calcium or a Rolaids. They're calcium carbonate, and they work very well in relieving the pain, but it's a little poison pill.
And one thing, one of your interviews, you talked about the thing called personal responsibility. Do you think most diseases that are common in Western world that is because that people take care of themselves, that they lack personal responsibility and hope that doctor will cure them from the disease?
Which is not a very good hope that's going to be fulfilled. It's we've already shown. I think we've already shown how little doctors know and how little interested they are in learning more. So I mean, that's a horrible combination. Not to know much and determined not to learn more, other than to just reinforce the flawed ways that you're practicing in the first place. So no, and just like we just said with the milk diet. People eat what they want to eat. I mean, and hey, we all do that. I understand that. But don't automatically think that just because something tastes good, it's somehow good for you, or something that gives you pleasure is somehow good for you. No correlation there at all. It might be good for you, it might not be good for you. And so you talked about personal responsibility. And that's exactly the mindset that you have to adopt if you want to have any chance of living the longest, healthiest life that you can. Because I can't emphasize it enough. Medicine is a business. Medicine promotes extremely expensive, extremely toxic pharmaceutical agents as the treatments of choice, at the same time working feverishly to promote disinformation of the public as to how toxic vitamin C is and how bad vitamins and minerals are for you. It just couldn't be more flagrant. So it's kind of like let's say you have your best friend, some situation comes up and he or she just tells you the most bold-faced lie in the world. And then later on you find out about it and they say, oh, well, no big deal. Well, it's not likely that's going to be your best friend anymore, somebody that doesn't think enough of you to tell the truth. Yet, our governments, our doctors, our people in power lie to us 100 times a year. Yet when a new pronouncement comes out, we still give them the benefit of the doubt. Why? They deserve no benefit of the doubt at all. Matter of fact, they lie so frequently, it's almost reasonable to either ignore it or think the opposite at the outset.
I don't know. Maybe because people are, let's say, it's easier to delegate the responsibility someone else than think for them.
Well, exactly. That's exactly it. I mean, and we like to believe when we're sick, I don't feel like thinking about this. I don't feel like reading about this. I just want to go to somebody and be taken care of. Well, you just gave up your body. You gave up your health. You're not going to contest the issue at all. And I'm not going to say you deserve it. I mean, nobody deserves to be medically abused, but just don't be surprised when it happens. Hey, it's a tough life. It's tough staying healthy. It's tough restoring health because of all these obstacles I'm talking about, because of all the obstructions there are to positive information and not being threatened, not having a medical board say that's not what you're supposed to talk about. If you do that, you're going to lose your license. I mean, that's horse manure, my friend. That's crap. But that's what's happening everywhere on a daily basis, and unfortunately, it got magnified with the pandemic. Now, I wish it were otherwise. Okay, I'm not glad that everything I'm saying is true. I wish it were otherwise. But in my opinion, one of the major benefits of this pandemic is much of the world now realizes what a fraud most of modern medicine is.
I think it's a good thing, but one thing comes to diet. That recently I studied a little bit about Italian diet because I read a comment about how Italians are no fat people and find out that pretty much comes down on diet and pretty much think their course like breakfast like very light, maybe coffee and some bread. Then like in lunchtime you took like lots of carbs. And the dinner time is like very important. Like, can you like take like veggies, fruit, meat, pretty much compensate what you eat during lunchtime? And
I think a good diet, and this might upset a lot of people too, is a good supportive measure for good health. Too many people put it all on diet. And if you put it all on diet and you ignore the information about infections in your mouth, promoting all diseases, your diet's not going to do you a damn bit of good at all. Okay? I mean, when you have heart disease, you have heart disease because you have one or more infections in the teeth in your mouth and tonsils, releasing pathogens and toxins that colonize your coronary artery, use up the vitamin C, cause inflammation, the immune system comes in, you get a chronic inflammatory response, you develop atherosclerosis, and you get your heart attack. Somebody asked me the other day to, do an interview or write a supportive article on the benefits of exercise for heart disease. Now, bear in mind, I'm a cardiologist. Yes, exercise is fine, but you're not helping the patient. If they're a heart patient and you say, start getting a little exercise, but you don't tell them to go see the dentist and get evaluated for infections of the mouth. All you're doing, in my opinion, is accelerating that person's demise and misery because you got to go to the top of the pyramid. You got to talk about what's starting it all. And what's starting it all is a chronic focal infection, keeping oxidative stress very high in your body and causing atherosclerosis to take place. Exercise by itself does not do much. It's a good augmentative type of intervention, like good exercise and good diet. Those are great, but you got to be aware of these other principles, or you're just giving yourself a false sense of security.
So pretty much you say that exercise and a good diet is good, but if you don't deal with the root cause of the problem, then it will not help.
And I mean, you can feel great for a long time while coronary disease is developing. I mean, marathon runners and all these, I'm not saying it happens a lot, but they'll drop dead of heart attacks and say, what happened? That was a perfectly powerful, strong young man, and he had a heart attack. Well, the real question is, when did the dentist put the root canal in his mouth? That's the question. And exercise by itself is a delusion if you think that's a good assurance of good health. You have to examine these concepts I'm talking about. Maybe I give all of this away in a book, so anybody that wants the Rapid Virus Recovery book can also get the book called called Hidden Epidemic, a free download that'll give you all this information. But exercise by itself is a delusion if you think that's what you need to do to, and a lot of exercisers do that. I mean, and I'm not making fun of them. I'm not saying they're not intelligent. They're just deluded. They have the wrong thought. They think if they can run further, run harder, this, that, or the other, they're going to get healthier, healthier, and healthier. No. They'll get stronger muscles. They'll have greater aerobic endurance. But what they're doing to the pathophysiology of their coronary artery, if they have infections in their mouth, they're not doing a damn thing.
It's like the problem with that they don't like see the big picture, that only they see, okay, I have to change my like diet or do like exercises regularly, and then my health will improve. But beyond that, I don't like care about, okay, what's like bigger picture, what my body needs.
Well, you look at all our professional athletes as a group, football in the United States, soccer, others. I mean, they're enormous aerobic specimens, but also look at the average age at which they die. Not many of them are making it in the 80s and 90s, only a few in the 70s, and most of them are going in the 60s. So they had a good, strong life while they had it, but they didn't assure themselves longevity with their regimens of exercise. I mean, like I'm going to say, I'm not saying exercise is not good for you. I'm just saying definitively it's not the single panacea for good health.
Okay, do you have something to add?
Well, most of the things that I have to add are in my book, Rapid Virus Recovery, and since I'm giving it away for free, I think anybody that doesn't want to take advantage of that and look at these principles I'm talking about, because it lays out a very clear way to prevent and treat COVID, along with other respiratory infections, improve your gut. So it's all there. It's a simple book. It's got far more information in it than I can just provide in the next 5 or 10 minutes. And I would strongly encourage people to take advantage of that. So again, just let people know my email address and say I'd like the information that you talked about with Monty, and I'll give them some links, and they'll have something they can work on. And down the road, if they do enough reading, I can steer them hopefully to a physician or something that can help them achieve what they're trying to achieve. But that, I think, would be the most meaningful way to help anyone who's listening to this podcast.
I got and the people who like want to start take self-responsibility, they have to forget that you 1 second, you have all the information. That now it's more like a path that you have study and apply.
I was at a conference the other day, and one of my books is sitting there, Hidden Epidemic. So this little lady comes up and says, okay, what's it all about? I said, no, here, take a copy. No, tell me what I need to know. Tell you what you need to know. I go to all the trouble of this writing the book, but you're not going to go to the trouble of reading it? I don't think so. Everything is in there that you need to know, but I'm not here to spoon feed you and every next person that comes along. There's not enough time in the day. I mean, that's what I write my books for, is time savers. I mean, I don't like saying the same thing over and over and over again several hundred times. I like to make a few comments and say, the rest of the information is here. If you want it, it's yours. If you don't have the time or the patience or the interest, well, I can't help you.
Myself struggle with that something okay, give me now, but something I have to read it and then apply it. And I think we covered most of it, what we want to talk about. And Levy pointed out, that if you have any information, you can get from his email from either from the video description, or you go into Google and find it yourself. But I also tried to give the books and the interview they covered in this podcast that also and will be in the description. But Dr. Levy, thank you for coming.
Okay, bye. Feel free to share my email.
Thank you.